Say it's got.
In memory.
Because it says it's supposed to be on the door
It did.
of the office.
The door at the entrance door. And
We put it there.
I'm gonna ask you to present what you wanna do, and all you have to do is set report and all the maps and everything else. Just say that you want to sell that acreage to the developer. And it needs to be rezoned to R1, the residential, in order for them to build residences on it.
Okay.
You don't need any more for farmland, and you're just,
Okay, I mean,
That's it.
It's a 1.5 acre.
I know, that's just it, and just say, hey, it's kind of in our way and squaring it up, we don't need it anymore. And it's so simple, it's like, it's almost one of those, you didn't need to be here.
Right, well, I don't,
But that's the
like he was going to.
Well, that's what he.
But I'm not sure he will be because if you know this was Steve.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know what Doug looks like if he walked in, so.
I have to talk.
oh, you'd like to talk,
If you have to talk, we'll have to slide this down.
right, yep,
Okay, you're live. It's all you're in PP.
But we got a couple of minutes. Yeah, we got a couple of minutes before we're live. What for Sean? Sean's live. Right, yep, so. I don't, they don't good have it. Oh, that's very good. Oh.
Snack, so she might go there.
I'm trying to eat it for you. Yeah. Yeah. When they make this stuff.
Ready? Ready, sir?
Getting so bad. Years coming up here. But.
Okay, it's 5 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and start our meeting. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm going to just briefly go over the agenda for tonight. We will have our roll call, the approval of our minutes. Then we will have case 2286, which is a rezone. Then we will go on to old business. Two businesses that were going to be here tonight are rescheduled until December 18th meeting. And that would be Rumpke for cases, excuse me, I think I just said that wrong. 2286 is the first one that is up. The old business 2281 and 2282, which is for Rumpke, will be on December 18th. And then also case number 2287, which is for an RV park up on Messick Road by Summit Lake. Then we will also have old business with case number 2285, which is the commission discussion on the PUD possibility. And then we will have new business, and then we will have our adjournment. Okay.
Want to go ahead and do the
Do you want to go ahead and do the roll call?
Gray. Here. Dale Cole.
Here.
Marcia Gretner.
Here.
Dave Fisher.
Here.
Steve Dellinger. Here. Jason Roberts.
Here.
Terry Matney.
Here.
Sheldon Dines.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, next is the approval of the minutes. I read through them and saw no corrections. Did anybody else have any corrections?
Motion made to accept.
Okay, who did the second? Steve? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we have case 2286, which is a rezone for parcels from an A1 agriculture to residential R1. Talking about, okay. You have 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Kidder Lake Estates is where it's at. There's two parcels there that,
Oh, you're talking in the box. Excuse me.
Towards you.
You can hold it or pull it.
Yeah.
There you
turn around, I have two parcels,
Mhm.
basically quarter acre lots that would square up the field that developers wanting to purchase
Uh-huh.
the two houses, and I need to get it rezoned from agriculture to commercial or to residential.
Residential. Okay. Anything else that you want to add? Okay, at this time, is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this zoning change? Okay, is there anybody here that would like to speak that is not in favor of this zoning change? Okay. Anybody have questions up here? Okay, Kenan?
This looks like a housing subdivision. Do you have, how many residents or houses do you have on lots there currently?
He owns the big field there that you see on the map, and he's selling those two lots to the developer.
Okay,
I don't remember exactly how many are there, but I can tell you the developer's running out of lots to build on, and he's built 14 houses out there in the last year. And he doesn't need that corner anymore, so he just wants to sell those two lots.
okay. That answers that. Yep. Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
I'm reading is property have SS sewers,
The subdivision does, yes.
does it?
Yes.
Yeah. And water also.
I think they're on well, I believe.
Yes, they have a well service, but there is a sewer for sewage.
Anybody else? Okay. Sean, did you want to do a roll call on this? Okay.
Board's ready for that. Is everyone ready?
Oh, is there, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to
So moved.
approve.
Okay,
The
and then
rezone.
Dale seconded it. Okay.
Kenan Gray.
Yes.
Dale Cole.
Yes.
Marcia Gretner.
Yes.
David Fisher. Steve Dellinger. Yes. Jason Roberts.
Yes.
Terry Matney.
Yes.
Sheldon Dines.
Yes.
Rezone is approved. And then that goes to commissioners after this.
We'll go home. We'll send you, it's not what happened here at the commissioners for.
Okay, we will continue on with old business, case number 2285. This concerns the PUD on 109 and I-70. I just want to share with all of you, three of us went to New Albany data centers. It is data centers, headquarters, and distribution centers. We looked and stopped at Amazon, Meta. I think there was a Google, but they did not have any recognition signs. The only noise that I heard in the distribution center was the heating and cooling. We could see quite a bit into that building and there just was no noise. When Kenan and I went to Meta, we had met a very nice security guard, but nobody is going to let us in. And then we did find out where the data center was and drove 2.5 miles to see that. Again, the only noise that we could hear was the construction that was going on. And do you want to add anything to that? And Terry Matney.
No, I think some of us also went to the one in Carmel, which is quite a bit smaller. New Albany covers 2 counties. I think they annexed into Licking County. Franklin County is Columbus. I contacted the county administrator in Newark, which is the county seat of Licking. That is where the business and technology part exists near New Albany. New Albany's a town of about 13,000. It reminds you of Carmel, Indiana, very upscale. Their business park is probably a good mile to 2 miles away from the residential area. Building everywhere. It would be like the Henry County Industrial Park times 20, at least. We know of at least 3 data centers there. We got as close as the security guard to the Meta, which is still building. You had to have special permits to go beyond the gated area at the security gate. I said, can we take pictures? And she said, no.
But it did anyway.
She
Started chasing us.
I went about 50 feet away from her to turn around because they wouldn't open up the gate for us. And I got out and took pictures and she started towards us and I saddled up and got out of there in my Hemi. But I did get pictures. It's a huge complex. And of course, we weren't close enough to tell anything other than it was huge. They had at least 5 buildings, probably estimating from the maps, the outline plan that was shared at our last meeting, each one probably twice the size of what's being proposed at Knightstown if it was fully developed. Electrical wires, towers going everywhere. We went into the Amazon distribution or fulfillment center, which I think is about the same size as the one near the Indianapolis airport, huge. We got as far as the lobby and security everywhere. And they said, you'll need to talk to someone in HR. So about 10 minutes later, someone from HR said, can you help us? We told what we were looking at. And the best information we got, we could see all the conveyors back in the back. Everywhere where signs says, no, do not take pictures or photographs. There I did not, because I was right across from a security table with about 10 security guards. But they did tell us where their Amazon data center was located, which was about 2 miles up the road. I'd say we couldn't get close. It's gated, industrial fencing around it. Really no access road that we could find. Substations, electrical substations. I would say it's about the size of the one in Carmel, the Amazon one. I guess there's a Google one, and there's another company with an abbreviation of 3 letters. Construction was everywhere. But again, the construction is a good mile to 2 miles away from New Albany residential area. the whole area was building and expanding. Right next to the Amazon Fulfillment Center is another huge building. We suspect it might be a data center, but that was not confirmed. It was under construction. Signs everywhere says no drones, no trespassing, but a heavy construction presence there. Again, the town itself is very upscale with golf courses and trails, all the amenities you would expect in Carmel without the roundabouts. But I did try to call the county administrator from Licking County, not Franklin County, and I just haven't got a call back. So that's an update. The one in Carmel, the noise was from electrical panels, like a humming, like you'd get at a electrical substation, like the one Duke has across from whatever that is. Used to be Carter Lumber. Now I think the Waste Management or Sanitary District of Newcastle. Just a humming. They have huge Caterpillar generators in case there's failure in electrical. They were not on, of course, because whatever their power source was, they didn't need the generators, but they're on stilts or they're raised above the ground about 10 feet. There's probably 6 of those, as there was over in Ohio. Terry?
Yeah, I made the trip, excuse me, on Tuesday, and I was able to find Google. They had a large sign. It just happened to be a city utilities truck parked in front of it while they were doing maintenance or looked like infrastructure builds. So I was able to get on kind of a riprap, kind of a path back behind it. And I went back as far as I thought I could without maybe getting caught back there by a backhoe or something. And I was able to take a lot of pictures, I would say maybe of the HVAC side. I would say that, my biggest impression is that, I did not see nor am I aware of any generators that were running. They were all off of the grid. So as far as noise, there was no noise. The Meta site seems to just go on for miles. And what I appreciated about seeing those sites is as they actually apply to the PUD that we're voting on tonight, was how they handled their setbacks and their landscaping and all that as far as trying to make a favorable impression, on the community. And literally there are no setbacks. Well, I should say they're minimal. I'm sure there are, but nothing like what's in the PUD that we have now. So what made my trip maybe a little unique was right halfway through the Metadata Center. I'd say it's a very large church, New Life Church. So I stopped in there and was fortunate enough I would say they were gracious enough to give me an audience to where some of the staff that was out and around and just kind of met in the lobby, and we just generally talked about, the environment and what it's like to live in that area. Basically what they shared was it didn't start out with data centers. It started out with businesses like a Bed Bath & Beyond. I think it might have been a Yankee Candle Shop. They talked about making candles, and all the other businesses were there. And then the data centers come in lately. So I asked them, well, what did that bring with you? And they said, well, when the data centers came, that's when the city started supplying the utilities. So he said, I just basically asked him an overall impression, good, bad, and really he was just kind of indifferent. He goes, if anybody wants to build now in this area, the hookups to utilities are very expensive. But he also said you're not having to sink a well and put in a septic system either, so that might be a wash. He did say that the police presence and the fire presence was considerably greater now, just due to the building there. So they were rather ambivalent, I guess you would say, as far as the whole thing goes. And, the biggest impression I got was, I think we could do better than that as far as the aesthetics, as far as what it looks like, because everything does seem to be right out on the road. And like Ken mentioned, substations everywhere, because he did mention that, they are drawing off the grid and they did experience utility costs going up. because they are on the grid and they are using all the utilities for for their cooling. So I guess what I would call maybe an old school data center setup. So, so with that, I'm on my way home. I stopped into Culver's to get a hamburger, happened to see a couple nice ladies sitting right next to me. And I asked them and, oh my gosh. So, and but they were positive for it. They talked about tax base and, growing growing that to help people out. So the general user wasn't having to pay, or general homeowner wouldn't have to pay the taxes, property taxes. So I didn't think I was going to get away from her, but they were very pleasant, very hospitable, and they shared that. So that pretty much was my visit to New Albany.
Okay, thank you. One thing I wanted to share, if you go on Expedient's website, you can actually take a tour of the data center inside if you're curious and you want to see what one looks like. And all three of us, and I think Steve, did you go to Carmel as well? Okay. We did this on our own time. And we did this on our own resources. And how come he got to go eat somewhere and we had to get sandwiches in the car?
I was on the date, so I realized, oh, it's a nice restaurant. It's a gas station.
Oh, yeah,
Do you want an answer to that?
no.
I'm cheap. I'm on the county council and I deal with budgets.
Okay, so at this time, we as the planning commission will be asking you some questions and making our observations. I'm going to start because I just happened to notice your chart here. When I recapped letters and emails and phone calls, et cetera, the biggest things were exactly what you have on here. The noise, the water usage, and the electricity. And then you've added the environment, which I really appreciate the fact that 25% or 150 acres is devoted to open space nature. It was alarming to see what they had done at New Albany, and there was just literally nothing. So with that, I'm not sure who wants to start, but if you want to show this, that's fine too. But these are major concerns people have. We've had the benefit of reading everything that you have submitted. So, and I want to make sure because it's been a repeated question. So if you would touch on those. And then I'll start having Sheldon after you finish that. Then we'll start with Sheldon and then we'll just come all the way down the table. So it makes it a little easier for you to do the minutes. I would turn it around.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. You have to address us, but in this case, just use your chart. Yeah.
I think both of us will probably want to talk about those subjects because I agree with you. Those are the main subjects that we always get asked about as
And-
well.
Can you all hear in the back? You can hear, okay, all right.
I totally agree. Those are the major topics and we'll talk about them. I do want to let you know if you want to dive into anything that we're saying tonight more, feel free to do that because I imagine that all three of the topics that you just mentioned, probably everyone has some different question about it or whatever. We'd more than happy to do that. I want to start by saying thank you though for your time tonight. Just when you were just talking about using your own resources, your own time, even outside of these meetings. And we know you're volunteers and we thank you for that. Thank you for making time for us twice now. I do think that you hit it on the head that by far the questions we get asked the most, I would say ranked in order would be water, electricity, and noise. What we put on that chart, there was a fourth one that I don't know why we don't get asked very much about it, which was the environmental things. For Chris and I, that's just personally, probably the most important for us. So that's why we have it on that chart, but it definitely doesn't get asked as much as the other three. it sounds like the last 30 days have been very valuable for you. They've also been valuable for us because we've continued conversations with neighbors. Even just immediately after the meeting last month, we actually got a couple of good ideas from someone, and I don't know what her name was, but it was great. And but it was concerning water. So I think what we'll do is start with that one. The reason that topic comes up so much is because there are certain data centers that use a cooling system that's an open loop cooling system. How that cooling system works is it essentially uses the earth as a refrigerator, sucks the water out of the ground. And where they're gaining from that is they're not paying to cool the water. That's why some folks like that. And then they essentially use it until it warms up enough that it can't be used for cooling, and then it's just put into a creek. To be very clear, we are against that, totally against that. From the very beginning, Chris and I have made that one of our number one priorities is to make sure that doesn't happen. The way that we have addressed that in the PUD is by prohibiting on-site wells, because if on-site wells are prohibited, you can't use that sort of process. We had two folks approach us about two different scenarios after the last meeting that I thought were actually really good thoughts. One person immediately after the meeting said, well, they're buying from the utility, then that would mean if you can't take water out of the ground, that means you have to purchase water from the utility. The answer to that is yes. It's exactly right. And so the thought would be that then they would not use this system. But she said, what if they do? Then you're still taking water out of the same well. It's just coming from, out of a different well, but the same water resource. So that was one point that was made to us that we have been noodling on a lot the last 30 days. The other point was a neighbor, which I won't say his name just in case he doesn't want me to, but emailed me and said, well, what happens if someone buys a neighboring property and decides to put a well there that was not subject to these restrictions? So Chris and I have been talking about this a lot. And what we would like to do is create a language in the PUD, assuming you all will accept an amendment. What we would like to do, assuming you will accept an amendment to language to address both of those concerns, is to put language that the single use open loop systems are prohibited. We still want to keep that on-site water wells are prohibited. We still want to keep that. So we're not saying it's in lieu of that. What we're saying is that we would like to strengthen that language to eliminate this issue that you all have probably been hearing about and we've been hearing about for a long time. Chris and I are very supportive of doing this if you'd be willing to accept that, because it's always been our intent to keep that kind of water usage from occurring. If we were to do that, what that means is this system that causes angst to us and to everyone else absolutely cannot be used anymore. That single-use water system that uses water for 10 minutes and then it's discharged cannot be used. So it eliminates those two loopholes that the citizens that were at the event last month brought up to us. So I would say that that is what Chris and I have probably spent the majority of this month talking about as well. I know that noise is another question, and if it's okay, just so I don't do all the talking, I'm gonna give Chris the cube so he can talk about that, and then we can kind of just have a conversation here.
Well, I want to thank you for your time and the effort that you all made to educate yourself over these past few weeks. Really, what we've tried to approach this project by doing is to really try to understand all the challenges that we've seen with the other projects that have happened and the other types of development that are similar to this. And quite honestly, there's a lot of things that we learned from New Albany and some good things that we've picked up as well to really try to adopt in this project. There's some key differences between what we're proposing and what you guys saw in New Albany. That development in itself is over 9,000 acres. So from a construction perspective, it's massively different than what the approach is here with this project. As was mentioned, all of it is grid connected. It is utilizing Columbus, the city of Columbus's water systems. And that's really not our focus here, on this project. You were able to see lots of different examples of Meta, of Google, of QTS, and other AWS, other data centers there. And I think what's pretty consistent is that, noise levels is a major concern, and that it's not significant around those projects. What is really great about the Henry County Code is that you guys actually have a very stringent noise ordinance. And if you look at what I've presented here, this actually comes directly from the Unified Development Ordinance. And it very specifically spells out decibel levels and octave bands, and even times of days when that can be used. Now, I think as everyone knows, the site that we're talking about is adjacent to I-70 with significant noise that comes off of I-70. That would not meet the noise standards of this site. And looking at our approach to this and using open space and really kind of solving the issues of setbacks that I think some of you saw. And I think they've done some good things with berming and landscaping in that area too. We've tried to adopt some of that and do enhanced setbacks and berming, which really helps from that noise perspective. I think the other issue that we haven't touched upon here is power. Again, in New Albany, the reason it's grown the way that it has, it's because that's where the home office of AEP is. And there's massive electrical infrastructure from AEP that supports that area, which is why you see all the substations everywhere, all the lines everywhere. Again, we're really looking at something very different here. So with our approach of doing on-site generation, there would be electrical infrastructure, but it would be internal to the site. We would have similar electrical infrastructure. We would have substations and those types of things, but again, internal to the site. Ultimately, our goal here, going this route, is to avoid any potential for cost to taxpayers or ratepayers. We are committing, and I know it's future discussion as far as the project pulling it together, but that generation will be 100% funded, and all electrical infrastructure will be 100% funded by the project itself. It will not be funded by Henry County taxpayers. It will not be funded by ratepayers. We think that's very important.
You say that one more time.
We promise that this project, that any power that's necessary for this project, the generation will be 100% funded by the project itself. All generation, all transmission, all electrical infrastructure for the project. And ultimately, it's our goal, because it would require redundancy, that it becomes dispatchable power that could become an added benefit to the grid. So we want to be able to put power back onto the grid. And those are the conversations that we've been having with the utility and working through that option. Now, that's a time-intensive process. It's not easy to put power on the grid or necessarily take more power off the grid. So we'll work hand in hand as we go down this process, with that utility. And it would be our intent that we'll be able to take that excess generation and put it back. But there's a regulatory process that we have to work through the Indiana Regulatory Commission and also through MISO. So there's interconnect studies. It's a long process, and we're committed to working with them to work through that.
You indicated previous, and from our writing, there we have the write-up on this PUD, you anticipate tapping into that very large Louisiana to Canada pipeline that runs through, I think, within about 50 feet of the land that you're talking about here, and have your own on-site natural gas power plants. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I just want to make sure I understand, you're anticipating only working on that one building initially, phase one.
We would anticipate that it would develop over time. that it would likely be an initial start with generation to support, one building, and then that would grow. So we would see that it would be one building at a time. It could be two. It really just depends on, what the project actually ends up being.
And then I just want to make sure, if you wouldn't mind going over, the different allowed uses that you would consider other than just the data centers.
Chris actually has a board that he'll get out here. So I'll start with this, and I know Chris will also want to talk about this, but one of, I would say, the critical points for you tonight, and hopefully this will take some pressure off of you by knowing this, which is what we are asking for tonight. I know that you're probably used to folks coming to you for variances, trying to maybe there's a rule in place and they need it relaxed. We are doing the exact opposite. We are not asking for any rule in existing zoning to be relaxed in any way whatsoever. Everything that we are proposing in the PUD is adding additional restrictions, additional guardrails is the word we like to use, over and above what your existing zoning is. In addition to that, what it is doing is eliminating a lot of uses that are in your existing zoning. What this visual is here is showing how everything in red is what is a restriction. So everything that is red is something that is in your existing zoning right now, and that we are saying that we're willing to take self-imposed restrictions to keep those from happening on the site. And you can see how big of a percentage that is. Chris, I'm sure you probably want to say a few other things. So I'll hand the cube over.
We realize that a lot of the discussion's been around data centers, but we truly think that the next opportunity with AI, comes with manufacturing. And that's really what we focused this around. If you look at Indiana and, communities like I'm from, and, we've been fortunate to do a lot of work here. Manufacturing is very important. It is what has built this state and employed people for so long. Indiana's actually the most manufacturing intensive state in the country. So we think there's a huge opportunity for that. One in the jobs that, come with constructing these facilities, but then two, long-term, good paying jobs that communities are very familiar with. So that's really what we've kind of built this around. The key to being able to do that is having access to utilities. So having power that can support it, having water and sewer to do that. You are going to start seeing these things happen. It's not going to be pure data center plays for these projects. And I think one of the most amazing examples, I think Indiana, quite honestly, we're leading in this right now. Because there was just an announcement by Eli Lilly. They've announced a partnership with NVIDIA. So I wanted to share this because they're making a many multiple billion-dollar investment in a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility. And the whole intent here is that they're going to use this data center that's going to sit adjacent to that facility to create drug models and to create drugs of the future. And this is the paradigm that I think we're going to start to see within these types of projects. That's exactly the type of opportunities that we want to be able to try to bring to projects, to places like this. And I think we used to have those things here. And that's the opportunity, I think, for communities like Knightstown, Newcastle, Henry County.
Okay, at this time, Mr. Dines, do you have any comments or questions?
Probably more than you want to hear. I got some questions about, I know I'm very much in favor of low or wise use of water and the things you've talked about. Now, I think I mentioned before about the only municipal water in the area is Shirley. Is that what we're talking about? Is that where you're thinking about getting the water? Or because my second question is, you can say we plan to go to Shirley to get the water, but my further question is, how does Shirley plan to get to you? And that means right away, maybe dealing with private people. There's not any eminent domain in here at all, as I see it. So I might be wrong. I'm not an attorney, but I like to think I am once in a while. That along with, I'd like to back up a little bit what the county might need to do. I've seen too many developments in other counties where the old 40-foot, 33-foot right of way on county roads is terrible. They develop all this stuff, and then they're unsafe. It's a common way to do it. That's backwards. Somebody needs to come up with some funds to put the roads in properly for what you're planning to do. And I'm not talking your plan down here at all. It's the county that cannot afford to do a lot of reconstruction on roads. We can't even pave our own roads right now. So I would say that whoever invests their money needs to do all that infrastructure first. Roads, getting the water there. There's a lot of things like that that has to be done. Then the other thing is, I noticed that most of these companies are LLCs, pyramid. What happens when one of them starts to fall off and the place, new technology, this stops the whole thing 10 years from now? Who's going to clean it up? That's just, I'm not asking you to answer that. We've got examples right here in Henry County that they can't be cleaned up. Allegheny Ludlam is a big one. Brownfield would have a heyday in there, and it probably never will be cleaned up. So I don't like that. I don't like to see properties that have no plan or no assurance back to the county that taxpayers and other people have to look at it and pay for it. So I'd like to see you address that stuff a little bit more, just out of my curiosity, I guess, because I see way too much of that in town, out in the country. You see it all over the place. We don't need to live in Trashville. It can be handled if people would just take part and do it. But this thing that's being planned, it looks like a good plan to me. But there's a lot of things need to be done before you get to the site for the county that we cannot, we're not going to pay for it, in my opinion, nor should we. So I'd just like to have your thoughts about that, if you don't mind.
Well, those are all great questions, and we absolutely agree that the county should not be held responsible for paying for any infrastructure at all that supports this project. That's 100% our commitment. We have had conversations with both the town of Shirley and the town of Knightstown on potential water and sewer connections. We see both as opportunities, and that's really the next step of what we're going to explore once we define that these use is acceptable at this location. We know that based on the work that the town of Knightstown has done, they've looked at water and sewer extensions to this location. We know that they've acquired some right of way along State Road 109 to be able to extend it. The challenge has been funding all along. And that's why this project will have to come with a commitment to pay for those extensions. And then when you start to look at their system, they've got improvements that they need to make to their water wells, to their water treatment system, to their wastewater systems. And that's got to be paid for too. And quite honestly, their ratepayers have not been able to afford it. And projects like this are opportunities to pay for that. So we will make sure that that happens. We think that commitment, that upfront commitment, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 to $30 million to make those extensions and to make those improvements. We even see opportunities that we may be able to tie the Shirley and Knightstown systems together. That's getting way down the road and way far ahead. But these improvements are going to have benefit to ratepayers in both locations. There's a 100% commitment on our part that will happen. With regard to roads, absolutely. All of that needs to be improved up front. And quite honestly, any damage to roads, through any type of construction, there will be an agreement that will be fixed and taken care of. Will be not left on the county to take care of that. You bring questions about right-of-way and easements. That all has to be worked through. And that's on us as developers, on our partners as we work through this. to make sure that that is taken care of. You know, one of our goals is that if we are able to do this project, we're able to find a user and actually extend those services, is that anyone that is along those lines, any home, any business can connect to those utilities for free. If we're going to foot the bill to extend those services, then that's a benefit to those people along the way. And also, we're not going to force any connections. That's always a concern with people with water and sewer. You know, if they're on a well and septic that are perfectly fine, then, you know, they can avoid the cost of that monthly cost of rates. But it's a benefit that 10 years down the road, their septic system goes bad, their well goes bad, they have an opportunity. I want to make that available to them. You maybe want to talk about the companies that we're going to go after and the types of credit and those types of things that can provide some of those assurances?
I think those questions are extremely important because it goes back to exactly what our philosophy of this entire process is, which Chris and I at the beginning of this project, you know, 11 months ago, whenever we were first dreaming about this, came up with what we call guiding principles. And one of those guiding principles, which I always keep in my wallet and I pulled out here just to make sure I say exactly right, is guidance from community conversation and not corporate pressure. That is one of the 4 things that we have used. Anytime we've been trying to make a decision through this entire process, we look at these guiding principles, and that is one of them, guidance from community conversation and not corporate pressure. And the reason I'm saying that, to answer your question, is we look at this process still to this day, and it will continue this until we as a community are ready to have these conversations. We have not talked with any data center end user. The reason we do not want to is going back to that guiding principle, which is we want these decisions to be made without corporate pressure. What you see sometimes is a big company, lots of money, attorneys can come in and they can push their weight around and perhaps pressure you all into making decisions that you're not comfortable in making. And that's what we're trying to completely eliminate from this process. So the way that we have looked at it is that we're trying to have these conversations with the community, establish these guardrails, and then when that is established, that's when we start marketing to the companies. In the last 30 days, someone I met with, when I was explaining that to them, said, so really what you're trying to do is you're trying to create rules for engagement. And I loved that he said it that way because that's exactly what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is set these rules so that when we have those conversations, they're right there and there's no negotiation. It's already put in ordinance. You don't even think about coming to our commissioners or our council and trying to change these rules because it's not going to happen. And they need to just make a decision. Are they a community-minded company that's going to work within these rules or not? And if they decide they're not, that's okay because we don't want them here anyway, if that's their decision. But the idea here is we set those guidelines up, we present those guidelines to them as we're marketing to them. No, there's no questions what we're looking for. And so that is exactly how we're going to solve that.
So can some of these things be put in your plan, added to your plan to make sure that just what you just said?
Yeah.
To any prospective person that wants to build out there. And I don't get the impression that the county's against development. That's not me. But I've seen too much stuff go on where it's not good for the county, and that's why I bring it up. I'm very much aware of all the water problems down there, believe me. A few other things I could say, but I won't. So anyway, I applaud your considerations. And as way I understand your plan, before any final designs are actually completed that would be installed in Henry County, they would get a chance to be reviewed by someone who's competent to actually see if they're valid or not and express any, not opposition, but questions.
I think you
Am I
just-
right about that?
You said it exactly right. And that would be the next step, is that as we have these conversations, that company then, their responsibility is to provide a development plan, is how you all describe it in the zoning ordinance, a development plan. And they cannot move forward with a project until that development plan has been presented to you and the public and been approved. So you're exactly right.
Okay, I think I better quit, give somebody else some time here, but thank you for your response.
David, do you have any comments or questions? Kenan?
How much time do you have? Or do we have? How much? I better talk fast. One of the things I've studied is the map of the Newcastle Till Aquifer. Henry County is blessed to have basically a reservoir of water. That's why Newcastle's tapped down there by the soccer fields of Memorial Park for 100 years. This map indicates, and it's partly from the DNR, that particular area between 400 and 500 feet deep is an underground reservoir. You can't see that out there, but you've probably seen this map. The dark blue includes the area on the west side of Knightstown and most of the western part of Henry County. Includes most of Henry County, the dark blue. Brush County, that's building that huge, I think, pet food conglomeration on the north side of their town. They had been seeking water permits from Henry County. They're not blessed with the reservoir that we are. In fact, I've got the Brush County map too. They have precious little blue. That's why they're coming after Henry County. But our commissioners did do an ordinance a few years ago that priority use is for Henry County above everything else. It's a natural resource, again, that we're blessed with. My question is, and you probably know the answer, I don't, or I wouldn't be asking it. Where does Knightstown get their water from? Is it this Till Aquifer, or where do they, I think they're pumping stations on the west side of town,
It is, correct.
which would be on the blue. Knightstown itself does not sit on that.
Right.
The worst possible water source is along the Big Blue River in southwestern. That's these purple areas where there's precious little water around the Big Blue River. But the west side of Knightstown's on that aquifer, that Newcastle. So do you have an agreement with Knightstown and or Shirley, or in the process, what's the status of your water supply?
So we don't have a specific agreement yet. Our first step in this process is really defining use. We've had significant conversation, and particularly with Knightstown because of their previous plans that they've put together to extend service to this area. You are correct. Knightstown's wells are west of town. As I understand it now, there's 2 wells there that are 500 gallons per minute wells. At 500 gallons per minute, that can pump 1,440 gallons per day. Or excuse me, 1,400,000 million gallons per day. I know that there's some challenges with those wells and that those wells need to be upgraded. It's just west of town on 40. Those wells need to be upgraded. And as part of this, we have discussions with their engineers of what some of that work would entail. So it would be our intent that if that connection is made, if the project does go forward, if that is extended, that this project would pay for all of those improvements. As I mentioned earlier, we're estimating that that's in the $20 million to $30 million range to fix their issues with wells and to extend services to the site.
Follow-up question from Sheldon. He talked about roads and improvements, and I know when BP Bellflower came in and built this very large solar farm that straddles southern Henry County and northern Rush County, that a provision was made that they had, because they totally destroyed those county roads in the construction of that. They were required to rebuild, repave. They were terrible. They were destroyed with the heavy equipment going in and out. So I'm suspecting we would not approve anything unless that was a condition of your LLCs or the companies that might integrate this facility, if approved, would be held responsible for, because the county does not have the money to reconstruct roads. We're trying to keep bridges and culverts open, and we chip seal instead of paid because of budgets and costs. So what say you on that matter?
Absolutely, this project will fully accept responsibility for repairing any damaged roads and improving those damaged roads and making sure that they are up to standards. And we fully will commit to having an agreement with the commissioners to make sure that that does happen.
Thank you.
Question I have, going to use union members to build this if this comes about?
The answer is yes. We are committed to using union labor to construct the project.
And I would just say there's no chance that this could not happen. I mean, we need skilled workers to be able to support that. It's important from my perspective that this construction comes from folks in Indiana as much as possible. There's the skills and the expertise here in these communities to be able to do that. And, certainly that's going to be a big part of this project. Absolutely.
Other question I have is, as you're aware, Knightstown is very much in need of ambulance services. I'm wondering if, through all the things that you plan on doing for schools and so on and so forth, if there's some way that you could include that into that agenda.
I'm really glad you asked this question. This is what we do for a living is build projects. One of the things that I've built the most are EMS and fire stations. I think we've built probably 50 public safety buildings. We look at that as not only a potential way to help the community, but also a major amenity that could be included on the site. If you look at the board where we were crossing out things that you cannot put on site, you'll notice that one of them we did not cross out was public safety, fire, and EMS. And the reason being is for exactly the point that you're making, which is we think that it will be an expensive amenity, but we look at it as it's benefiting the company, it's benefiting the community. The site could not be better, having access to both 109 and I-70. So to us, that's actually something that we're very excited about, and we think could also be part of the investment that we're talking about, that $25 to $30 million investment. A building like that, just as an example, I'm building about 5 EMS stations right now. They range between $800,000 to about $1.7 million. So that would tell you, when we're talking about this upfront investment, what percentage of that would be. And to me, that seems like a very reasonable request.
As you're aware, that comes under safety. Yeah. As Knightstown grows, it's more important that they have ambulance services of some kind. And so I think it's something that, as what you said, should be considered down the road. That will be a plus for Knightstown. One other thing is, as you've been pointing out, the biggest claims I have is water. If I understood him right a while ago in his tour, that those people down there indicated that their bills went up. Is that what you said?
They went up, they're on the grid. They're on the grid and they're using full water from the city, yes.
So that's, I don't know how we get around that, but
It's a different model.
I just hate to, I keep hearing about water bills going up, electricity going up, and it's all hearsay for me. I haven't seen anything, But, it's a complaint.
We are absolutely focused on making sure that this project does not cause anybody's water bill, sewer bill, or electricity bill to go up. And the way that we're able to commit that we'll do that is that we are going to pay for all the infrastructure. This project will pay for all the infrastructure to be able to support the project, but then also to fix system issues with their water treatment and their wastewater treatment as well. So that cost will not have to be borne by ratepayers. So that's why we've been focused on identifying those costs and making sure that any company that we work with will commit to paying that upfront so that the ratepayers do not have to. We want to make sure that this project actually benefits them and subsidizes their rate.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you, brothers.
What do you plan on doing with the existing water wells that's on the property?
We would close those wells. I mean, there's a process for eliminating the wells that are on site. Obviously there's a homestead there. We would go through that process to close that well.
And then at the previous meeting, somebody said that the TC's pipeline went through the property and it doesn't. How would you go about getting the right of way to get the line over?
Yeah, so we're currently working with both TC Energy. So we've confirmed capacity with TC Energy that there's plenty of capacity to be able to support the project. But then too, the retail provider in the area is Ohio Valley Gas.
I understand all that. I'm talking about the right of way to get it
Correct.
across to this property. 'Cause
Right.
everybody that's here is pretty much against it.
Well, there's right of way, there's existing lines from Ohio Valley that run along State Road 109. There's a 6-inch main. We've had conversations with Ohio Valley Gas about working through their system and improving or increasing the size of that line to be able to support the project. And we'll consider other options as we go too, because there's engineering that will have to happen. This is a significant project, and we'll work through those options, but that's something that we'll be required to do. We can't take any ground by eminent domain. As part of this process, the next step is we'll submit those fully designed, engineered plans to the Plan Commission for their review. So that's the next step when we get into the detailed plan process. So we'll have to provide all of that. But no, to be completely transparent, this line is the TC Energy's line, ANR's pipeline is not on the property, but it is that access. It is the ability to connect to it that does make this project viable.
When you guys get started on this and the development happens, and at what point do you guys bow out? As far as where you're done with your part of it and it goes to someone else, because I'm worried that when we approve the PUD, if we do, that at some point, if this falls apart or something goes south with it, could these restrictions or guidelines, guardrails, whatever you call them, be attached to the deed so that it can't be changed, can't be altered, can't be undone, and it's permanent? Are you guys willing or open to that possibility?
That idea first came up with us. We did a meeting with the neighbors, and there was someone there that brought up that idea. And we think it's a great idea. And it's specifically around the water usage, because one of the things that we want to make sure that does not happen is exactly what you're saying. I would imagine that if some company came back and you all are still the same board, you obviously would never grant a variance. But the question then becomes, what happens when there's some new board in the future, or new commissioners in the future, those sorts of things. So we like that idea. Again, it was not our idea. That was from a neighbor, but we do like it. And so what our thought is that we do put a covenant in with restricting the water wells and restricting the now restricting the cooling system. What the only issue that we can think of at all in that process is a timing issue, because if we this is actually something I actually want to talk through so that you all can think about this part of it. One thing we don't know for sure is that we'll be able to attract a company. I can tell you, if we were not putting all these restrictions that we're talking about tonight, I would feel 100% confident that we could attract a company almost immediately. We're trying something here that we're not aware of anyone in the entire country having done this. And so we cannot guarantee that we're going to be able to attract a company. Our understanding of your zoning code is that we only have 18 months to do that. And so one thing we do want to be careful of is we don't want to put that kind of restriction on the land until we know that's happening, because if it reverts back to agriculture, obviously those would be terrible, terrible things to be putting on for a future farmer. So we are very willing to do it. In fact, it's beyond willing. We want to do that. And the only little bit of mercy that we'd ask from you is just that we could time it when we have an approved company, so that we don't inadvertently mess up a farmer if we're not able to find someone. That'd be the only request we have. Otherwise, we love the idea.
One of the questions I've got has to do with the electrical, in particular the substation. So, and just that, how that whole flow works. So obviously you're going to have a substation. Who connects to that? Who controls that? Because I understand you guys can't sell power directly back to the grid. Got to be a third party in there, right? So what's the dynamics of that? Who really benefits with that substation? Maybe people that we don't realize.
Well, our whole intent with this process is really to work hand in hand with Henry County REMC and with Hoosier Energy. We would love for this to become a utility asset going forward. Now, there's a regulatory process that we have to go through for that to become the case. So from an initial perspective, the only benefit of that generation on site to begin with is to a company, to a user that locates there. But the goal, because there will be excess generating capacity there, is that we can work with the utility, and that this can be a model for how projects can develop and lower rates for people. Same has been true on the water and sewer side. If we can find ways to fund that upfront and to fix issues, we can ultimately lower rates for users.
Okay. So, and then to follow on to that, so who actually owns or controls the substation? And I've kind of got an end to a means to my question, so.
Yeah, so initially it would be controlled, by the project, by the site. It would be the site's expense, the project's expense to put that substation in place.
So as far as REMC is concerned, can that substation be used outside the project?
Not until we had regulatory approval to be able to connect to it.
Because it's my understanding, I think that the Kennard substation, could use a little love, if you will. And I think that's kind of a problem to some degree. And does this substation offer the possibility of helping electrical users in that part of the geography?
I would say absolutely. What this potential does, there are power plants that are located all over the state in different locations, but none, you've got the Caddis plant that's not too far. That's a Duke plant. Having a distributed network of power generation will improve the power reliability, the grid resiliency in those areas. So if there are ever issues with grid or too much draw in other places, the good part about having that generation source in that location is that it does provide stability for others going forward.
Okay. So one other thing that I noticed when we go through these studies, a lot of the numbers have no context, especially when you talk about emissions, when you talk about, hundreds of tons of pollution per year. The numbers just sounds mind-boggling. But I think in the grand scheme, these numbers are just business as usual. So I didn't know if you guys were capable. As a layperson, I kind of looked at some of this, but obviously as a layperson, but could you compare the emissions from this data center to say what might be created at State Road 3 and I-70, or maybe what's over there? We're talking about turbines running, but now we're compared to traffic up and down the highway. We're talking about semis, in and out, idling all night. So I would just like to know, what's the difference? Is there any difference?
So what you'll find is you've got a much cleaner emissions coming from these turbines.
Mhm.
And the technology is constantly improving and constantly changing.
Mhm.
And the whole idea behind it is reducing emissions.
Mhm.
As part of our process, we'll have to go through a very stringent permitting process with IDEM and with the EPA for air permitting. That specifies that we're using, they call it best available technologies. And then also, things like selective catalytic reduction
Mhm, right.
to really,
SCAR.
to reduce the amount of those emissions. There are very specific thresholds, and all of that has to be published, modeled, and that's a process that we are absolutely committed to go through. And quite honestly, we cannot not go through that.
Right.
We have to provide that and to ensure that the environment is protected.
So is there anything that you could compare that to then, say, as far as 3 and 70, just as a comparison? Have you looked at like modeling, what's creating emissions and what we've lived with forever compared to what we're adding?
I think probably the closest comparison would be the Caddis plant.
Okay.
From a technology perspective, that was put into service, I don't know how many.
Few.
Yeah, several years ago. I don't want to say because I really just don't know. But the technology has improved so much from where that is.
Okay.
Both in just efficiency to where you're burning significantly less gas and getting much more power, but then also being able to control those emissions as well.
So, and I just got one more. It's kind of along the same lines as water. I think people might be amazed to know that, man, the millions of gallons of water that are used. And it is kind of mind blowing, but it's business as usual, right? So can you tell me an estimate of just how much water might be used? Because it's a question I hear a lot, just to charge the system, get started. And then, let's compare it to a golf course. It's pretty easy to find studies how much water a golf course uses in a week on an average Indiana summer.
So when you start talking about closed loop systems, there is the filling that you just mentioned. You're going to use a certain amount of water to flush because typically, once they put it into service, you'll clean out the system and then you'll add water and fill it. That has to be recharged every so often. So every few years that will be recharged.
Okay.
But you're seeing a very distinct movement within this industry to where folks are going to very low to no to even being able to recharge water as part of this. And I think it's interesting because, there was a project that was brought up at the last hearing that Meta did. It's a gigawatt facility in El Paso. And that is a closed loop system to where they're just going to fill it. So most of the year it uses no water for cooling at all. So you'll have your domestic use, which will just be, washing hands and that type of thing. But Meta is committing by 2030 to do a 200% to recharge 200% of the water that they use. So that's what we're starting to see in this industry. So there's a big change. And I think it's very fortunate because, we're not going to have these issues and we're committed to not having these issues too. I've actually got a board associated with that. So, that's some information related to the Meta project where it indicates that, by 2030, they will recharge 200% of that water. Now, that's not all cases, but I think that's where things are going to.
Thank you, gentlemen. Marcia, that's all I had.
Anybody else? Any last question?
I have a question. State of Indiana passed, the legislators passed something, I believe in 2018 or 19, that these base type developments would not be subject to sales tax or county tax. Now, can somebody legal tell me how that works or doesn't work? We don't, in other words, we as a county would not collect any taxes on this type of development.
Yeah, that's not the case.
That's not the case. Okay, I'm just
so
asking that.
It absolutely, I think, this is a great question because, I think as far as we're concerned, we absolutely want this project to contribute revenues to support Henry County from day one, Knightstown schools from day one, to pay for the infrastructure and to support public safety. That's our commitment to make this happen. And we will not consider a user that is not willing to do those things. Now, there are sales tax exemptions that are available for specific uses within the property, which that's actually an energy generation. There are other things that are available too, but what we're going to really focus on is bottom line revenues that come to the county. We will make sure that that happens.
Okay, that's primarily property tax. This is sales tax. They did it as an incentive, obviously, to get people to come to Indiana and put these things in. Because you're talking about millions and millions of dollars. That's a big number. But I didn't know if it actually affected the county part of that on the local taxes. Can you say any?
First, property tax. Correct. They also have to pay property taxes and things. I'm not familiar with the sales tax aspect of their project. But as far as general property taxes or any other fees they would have to pay, they're not exempt so far as I know from anything like that.
Yeah.
Anything related to a local exemption would have to come through the county council. So anything related to that would have to go through a process with the county council at that point in time.
And on that note, I understand you're not, for this part of your project that you're proposing, not requesting any kind of tax abatements. That doesn't say any potential company that is interested, given your guardrails, would not seek those. The last legislative session in that Senate Enrolled Act 1 put Indiana in a very favorable business climate. So I would be surprised if one of these mega companies would not be interested, given the business personal property taxes limit has gone up like 15-fold during this recent legislation. So I think Indiana itself, large companies would be looking in building or expanding here. I was reading, thanks to Marcia, one of the links that she shared with me. This is the 2024 State of Data Center Report. One of the things the authors highlighted is the tremendously rapid evolution of technology. They pointed out that the previous year's annual report, which would have been 2023, ChatGPT had just come out. So many people, especially younger people, are using it. Our daughter teaches, I did for 39 years. Showed my wife, who was a kindergarten teacher who's retired, how to use ChatGPT. She was amazed. Put in the parameters, told it this, and it came up with an analysis that would have taken her 6 hours, and they did it in 15 minutes. So I know it's here to stay. It's somewhat scary because of the unknowns. It's scary. It could get in the wrong hands and do a lot of damage, but it's like the internet. People were leery of the internet back in the late 90s. Decommissioning is something Sheldon brought up. I assume that was going to be part of the talk with the commissioners and the kind of ordinances and I know that this would be the first step of probably 3 or 4 major steps and hurdles that would have to go through before you even consider some company applying for this, which I guess would be within the next 18 months. We'd have to have more specifics, but this is the first step of many, is my understanding. It looks like from your map that you had up here that the first point of construction, if this were approved, let's say 18 months, would be west of County Road 1025. And that looks like where you propose to build utility facilities as far as natural gas. Would the intent be to build the natural gas power plants that would supply the entire 500 acres or just west of 1025? Would that all be up front?
We would likely supply the entire site from one specific location, and it may be phased over time. So, there's the opportunity to add turbines over time as, power needs within the site grow as buildings are added. So yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, at this time, I would accept a motion to certify with a favorable recommendation and forward to the county commissioners, the creation of the Henry County Technology Park Planned Unit Development.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Terry, second.
I'll second that.
Kenan. Kenan was the second.
The roll call. Kenny Gray,
Yes.
Dale Cole. Yes. Marcia Gretner,
Yes.
David Fisher. Steve Dellinger. Yes. Jason Roberts. Terry Matney,
Yes.
Sheldon Dines.
Yes, with the conditions that they are going to put in what they told us tonight. So it won't be exactly like they gave us.
So go to the commissioners, with a 7-1 favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much. Okay, do we have any new business? No new business? Okay, your motion to adjourn, Dale.
I told people this is